If you're still overseeing the day-to-day of all the people that aren't doing the stuff that they're supposed to be doing, we don't want you spending time being a firefighter. We are going to get you out of that by first removing you from the day-to-day, kind of walking you through how to do that, and then what to do with your time once you get out of the day-to-day. You know, this is the stuff that will give you leverage. This is what creates the time. This is what creates the freedom. So if you're gonna say, I'm willing to sacrifice myself and all the things in my life that I'm putting on hold for my business, then this is the place to start to gain back that time so that you have a business that's set up. Once you get the leverage and once you start removing yourself, you'll be able to dial in, you'll be able to start running your business off of meetings, reports, and block time. But first, we gotta get you out. It's time to do the work. This is the real work. You guys can do this. This year has flown by, and we've gotta start focusing on building our business, building our systems. And I know it's a big struggle for a lot of people to make the time to do that. So I wanna just break this down today. Like, no excuses. By the end of today, my goal is that you've got a plan, you know what you need to do, and you could start working on your business in order to get to the next level. So wherever you're at, if you're still overseeing the day-to-day of all the people that aren't doing the stuff that they're supposed to be doing, we are going to get you out of that by first removing you from the day-to-day, kind of walking you through how to do that, and then what to do with your time once you get out of the day-to-day. I think we all understand the concept of working on your business versus working in your business. You know, working in your business, you're a required piece of the machine, right? The machine needs to run. Anything that you do that is part of that day-to-day, whereas if you weren't in it, it wouldn't run, is working in the business. And what we want to do is we want to get you to a place where you're working on the business, right? You're spending more of your time working on the business, which really just consists of building systems and building team. You know, I mean, that's really, if we just kind of boil it down to a couple things, like that's it. You know, it's building the systems to run the business, getting the team to run those systems, and then giving that team a set of processes to do that. The quicker we could get you out of the day-to-day, the more time you could spend working on the business, the faster you're going to be able to grow and get to that next level. And then we're going to talk about what to do also once you're out of that day-to-day, right? Because we don't want you spending time being a firefighter. I know that could be rewarding to come in and put out fires and deal with problems and handle situations as they come up. But the reality is the very act of removing yourself from the day-to-day is working on the business. So you'll start to see as we go through this, you know, I want to kind of demystify this whole thing and simplify it. So instead of, you know, looking at it like I need to get to a place where I'm going to work on the business, no, like we're going to start that today. Like today, this week, you're going to start working on the business. What are the exact steps that need to happen? The first step is you've got to create a 1-year objective for yourself. And that 1-year objective is remove myself from the day-to-day. Okay? In the next 12 months, you're going to remove yourself from the day-to-day. So with anything you do that's, you know, needle movers in your business, I'm not talking about like just, you know, reacting to the day-to-day, but proactively building your business, you've got to set an objective for the year. And then from that objective for the year, you've got to break that down into quarterly objectives. So, and when we look at it and we say, you know, like I'm not going to sit here and go remove yourself in the next 30 days. Okay, if that happens, great, right? If that happens, great. But let's give it a year, but then let's really chip away at it aggressively and do it right. You know, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to just go, I'm going to stop coming in, I'm going to stop working and hope that everything happens correctly. We need to set up the systems and the people around us and make sure that they know what they're doing and they're well supported to be able to continue to execute better than you did while you were doing the job. With this, the acts that you take doing this, everything that you take to do this will also build your business and make you more profitable at the same time. So it's like this is also helping you to build a model business as well. Because a model business can't run with you being a part of it, because then it's not a model. Because a model business means you've got to be able to duplicate it. You can't duplicate yourself, unfortunately. If anybody's got the hookup on cloning, please message me. I want to know. I'm willing to pay. But we need to create the model business. So you've got that 1 year target, right? You've got that big, maybe you've got another yearly objective of like revenue targets or something like that. But we're going to start with that big, broad, remove myself from the day-to-day. Like, I want you to put that somewhere visible that you look at it every day and that's what you're working towards and you believe it's possible. 1 year is plenty of time on top of all the day-to-day stuff that you need to do to start removing yourself, okay? The next step is quarterly objectives with projects. I'll give you a second to write that one. Quarterly objectives with projects. And so what that means is you're going to take quarterly objectives, so every 90 days. When we look at, we've got a year, all right, so we only want to work on 3 objectives per quarter. 3 objectives per quarter max, all right, because we want to make sure that we're doing it right. We want to make sure that we don't overwhelm ourselves. We want to make sure that there's still room to run the day-to-day. And if and when if you knock out all 3 objectives by in 1 month, then you could start adding in additional ones, right? But give yourself 3. I know the go-getters out there are like, I could do 10, but it's 3, all right? 3 is the magic number that will reduce the overwhelm and actually make it to where you could execute on this stuff. So what are some of the, and projects, what does that mean? So a project for me is you've got to have a place where you keep track of this objective, right? It's one thing to write it on a piece of paper or write it on the wall, but you need a project. So I like to keep everything in a program called Asana, A-S-A-N-A. You don't have to use Asana. I'm not affiliated with Asana, but it is a project and task management tool. But what we want to do, even if you don't use that, you just want to have a note or a file or something for each one of the objectives to where you could keep track of all the milestones and action steps along the way that it's going to take to get there and all the things that you need to do. And you could, add to it constantly. And as you finish certain things, you could check them off. Remove myself from sales. Remove myself from customer service. Remove myself from, paying all the bills. Whatever role that you're currently, remove myself from sales management, right? Remove myself from operations management. Everybody's at a different level here. So just because you might be more in a management role, managing other people, to really remove you, we want someone else managing the other people, because if you were to be removed, the business would break down. So basically anything to where if that position gets removed from the machine breaks down, we need to get you out of that. You can't be, the business and the machine of the business can't rely on you to run it, all right? You need to more design it, improve it, lead the people that are running it. And so what you want to do is I would give yourself 90 days per position that you need to remove yourself from. So let's say whatever it is right now that you're like, I need to get myself out of this. We just named them all. I would put that as the next quarter's objective, right? We're going to pick one position and give yourself 90 days because you need the time to get yourself out of that position, right? To think that you're going to remove yourself completely out of the business in 90 days is unrealistic. You're going to set yourself up for disappointment and unnecessary stress, right? Again, remember, we're not talking about turn your back on the business and walk away and say, here, you guys handle this. It's like, I feel good. I'm stepping out of it. Someone's stepping in. Okay, so now you've got quarterly objectives with projects to go with them. Okay, so you got the year, you got the quarter. The next step is you need block time. Okay, we'll talk about this in depth. So we need time blocks on the calendar. And those time blocks, write this down, equal progress and freedom. Each block equals progress and freedom. And so the goal, when we talk about block time, if you think about your calendar, I want everybody to get a fresh calendar. You're still using a desk calendar or the wall calendar, great. But I would recommend whatever you use for your calendar online, whether it's Outlook or Google. Like I use Google, like I would just go to my Google account and start a new calendar and just call it block time and start building out your block time. And realize, like, if you just kind of, for every block, let's just think about this as a block, right? And you're going to have, I want you to start with 1 to 2 hour blocks every day. 1 to 2 hour blocks every day. We're going to get real momentum here. Okay? If you can't squeeze in an hour, I want to know, and we're gonna audit your entire day and life and figure out what you've got going on. Because if you can't squeeze an hour a day somewhere, even if you got to give up something, then you're not going to be able to wiggle your way out of the day-to-day, right? Because at first, I say wiggle because at first it might feel like, I just got to wiggle. It might not be this smooth, pretty thing, right? It might be like I've got to get up an hour earlier, or I've got to not spend, I can't spend the time at night on TV. I've got to do that. And so if you think about that block on the calendar and just think about each one, I don't want you to look at it like an obligation. I want you to look at each one as progress and freedom. Progress and freedom and money. Progress and freedom and the model business that you'll be proud of. Like, this is what it's going to take. What it's going to take is it's going to take more of these blocks, larger blocks, to start really making an impact on the day-to-day. Right? So the more of these we could get on the calendar, the more time we have to work on the business. And that's all I want you to write in that time block is work on the business. That's it. Don't worry about making a time block for your numbers, a time block for systems, a time block for building team. Just work on the business. So right now, just off the top of your head, I want you to think about what time of day you could do a 1 to 2 hours where you could work on the business. And just write that down. Okay? Is it, in the morning before everybody wakes up? Is it at the office? Is it over lunch? Is it in the afternoon? Ideally, you want to be working on this stuff when you're at your best, when you have your most energy. But at first, you might not have that luxury. Right? You might not have that luxury. My suggestion would probably be, if at the end of the night you're exhausted, don't schedule it for the end of the night. Like, be realistic. Get it in at some point during the day. But this, I'm going to harp on this because this is so big. This is so big. The whole title of today is make time to work on your business. This is how you make time. You go on the calendar and you carve out a block, and it's basically a meeting with yourself that you say this is the most important meeting I could possibly have. You might have to tell your team, sorry, if there's an emergency during this block, do not bother me. Customer's going to cancel, let them cancel. Sometimes you got to sacrifice something small for what's bigger. We're going to lose this job. You can't bother me, so figure it out. And you'll start to see how empowering that is. You'll start to see that your team actually can figure it out on their own. And they don't need to bother you as much as they do now. You put your phone in Do Not Disturb. Right? Go right on your phone. I don't know if you've got an iPhone, you just swipe down and hit the Do Not Disturb button. For an emergency, you could put anyone that actually, not everybody is worthy of calling you over an emergency, right? Like, to me, I've got my wife and a few other people that, like, anyone else, their emergency is not really my emergency. So whoever that would be, whoever's like in control of the business, family, and you put them in your phone as a favorite, and you set your phone up to say, if a favorite calls me, even if I'm in Do Not Disturb, let it ring, right? And in this way, you let those people know what your block time is, and that you'll be in Do Not Disturb if they need you and it's an emergency call. Otherwise, don't bother you. And so what we want to do is we want more of these. You'll start to associate each one of these blocks. Let's just say this is an hour block, and let's say you put 5 of them on your calendar, right? And then maybe you turn those into 2-hour blocks or 90-minute blocks. You know, you don't even have to go from an hour to 2. Maybe go hour and 15. Okay, let me stretch this out a little bit more. I promise you, the more of these you could have on your calendar, the more money you will make, the more freedom you will have, the more progress you will make, and the quicker you will get out of the day-to-day of your business. If you aren't able to get to a block for whatever reason, and I want you to be really, this is the time to have the gut check, right? When you tell yourself, oh, this other thing's more important, it's only because we've been programmed to live in distraction. We've been programmed as business owners to put out fires and be reactive to what's happening. So if you happen to, look, stuff comes up and maybe you can't honor that time block, you go on your calendar, you grab it and you drag it and you find somewhere else for it. Because if you're going to commit right now, let's just say to 5 hours a week, forget about the weekends. Monday through Friday, you need at least an hour on the schedule every single day for this. Every day. Every day. And I'm going on this because it's like, I want to come in there and stand. I want to stand next to each and every one of you and wish I could transport myself in there every day. Be like, let's go. We need an hour today, right? But you need at least an hour. So if you got 5 to 10 hours a week, if you miss one, okay, you might have to double up on another day. You might have to do it on the weekend. I'm truly want to make sure I'm getting this through, that this is the stuff that's going to matter. Okay? Even if you've got no idea what you're going to do, which we're going to talk about in that block, if you're like, what am I going to do in the block? Doesn't matter. You sit there, and unless it has to do with working on your business, building systems and building team, you don't look at it, you don't hear about it, nothing. Nothing. If you have to sit there with a blank piece of paper and go, what do I do in this block? And just start listing ideas if you had no idea. Like if you got cut off right now, we didn't go any further, right? Like you're in that block and that's all you could do in that block. Nothing else can come in that block. Someone knocks on the door, you got a minute? No. And you give them the death stare for even interrupting you, right? The text message, the alerts, all that gets shut off. You guys could do this. I do this for 3 to 4 hours a day. That's what you're going to want to build up on, right? You could do it for an hour. The next thing you're going to do with that time, first step, okay, so now we've got that. So the first step you're going to do is every job position that you're in right now, everything you're doing, you're going to clearly define the roles and responsibilities. So you're like, okay, what do I do in this block? You're going to go, okay, what hats am I still wearing? Which one of these am I going to move myself out of first? Right? We talked about picking one for every 90 days. Picking one for every 90 days to move yourself out of. So what you're going to do is you're going to clearly define the role, because what we do is we don't want to create jobs and job descriptions for people. We want to start, this is how we build up our system, this is how we build our business, right? We want to start at the bottom, and we want to, every position we want to move ourselves out of, or that we've already moved ourselves out of, but there's not enough clarity on how it gets done, so there's inconsistency. And we want to define that role, and each person we have in our company, we could assign multiple roles to people. And we could move those around to different people. So like if a role, if we're doing this stuff now, it's like you get to hand this whole package off to somebody so that they clearly understand what their role is and what their responsibilities are. And then for each of these responsibilities, They all have a process. They each have an individual process, right? So if you're like, oh, I don't know how to train somebody to do this. Well, how do you do it? What are the steps you take? And write all that stuff out. Like, this is what you're going to do in your block. There's others. Look, we could talk about getting your numbers in order. We could talk about all that, but we've got to get you to freedom. Once, I'm telling you, once you get the leverage and once you start removing yourself, you'll be able to dial in. You'll be able to start running your business off of meetings, reports, and block time. But first, we got to get you out, right? So this is the stuff you work on, right? You're going to document. You're going to get clearly define the roles and responsibilities of those positions. You're going to, that hour, the alarm goes off, right? It's like, that's how you respect the block time too. It's like, you got other stuff to do. You set the timer goes off. All right, where am I? Let me just make a note of where I left off so that I can pick it back up tomorrow. And so the first one is you're just going to describe the role and the responsibilities. Then once you have the role, the responsibilities, then for each of the responsibilities, you're going to document a process. And I would just do it yourself. Like, just get in there and just do it yourself. Might be ugly, might need spell check, doesn't matter. You could do it on, you could do bullet points. You could do video. If it's something on your computer, how to do something on a computer, where to check, in the CRM, like what to do. Use Loom, Loom. It's free. Start the video recorder and just, okay. And we want to click here and then click there. And you just show somebody how to do it and explain to them how to do it, right? So you're duplicating your training. Instead of having to train somebody one-to-one, you're training them one to as many as you need over time. And you're doing it once, one and done, right? And so what this does is it forces you to think about how you want it done, which could be very uncomfortable. I remember feeling very uncomfortable, feeling like, I don't know. I kind of figure it out. I just do it. It's like, okay, well, let's slow down a minute and let's just remember, let's remember Lewis saying, no, look, you could extract it. What's the, you go down, you start writing the steps and you get to a step and you're like, yeah, but if it happens this way, we would do it this way. And if it happens that way, we would do it that way. Okay, write all the scenarios. If there's 2, write down 2. If there's 5, write down 5. And then write what they would do with each of those scenarios. Like, if this, then do that. If this, then do that. If this, then do that. And just get it all out of your head. Don't worry right now about making it pretty. Right? Because once you get yourself out of the day-to-day, you could get somebody in there and be like, here, clean this shit up. Like, you don't have to make it pretty yourself. You just have to make sure that you're transferring your knowledge and documenting it so that somebody else could do that job and you could remove yourself from that job. One role at a time. That's it. One role at a time. Then from there, train and manage your replacement. You go and you clearly define the role, the responsibilities of that role, and then document the processes for those responsibilities. You're able to bring somebody on and train them like that. And now you move yourself out of where you're at, okay? You move yourself basically out of doing it to overseeing them doing it, to managing them doing it. So like phase 1, the first couple of weeks, you're probably literally right there next to them, working with them, but you've been doing it yourself this whole time, right? And so, and you feel the confidence of knowing like, all right, even if they don't get this 100%, even if they're not listening to me 100% right now, because people tend to daydream, okay? I know that they've got a documented process, or I know they have a video that I could keep referring them back to, and they've got the tools. Think about how many times, I've done it. Think about how many times you train somebody by sitting next to them, and you already know doing it, but we do it anyways, that they're going to forget it, or they're not going to do it right, Or we have the high expectation and hope that they're going to remember it all and they're going to do it right, and then we come to the reality that it doesn't work that way, right? So now you're training them, you're managing them, which at first it's like, you keep guiding them back to the process. You might be sitting right next to them while they're doing the thing that you could do in 5 minutes. Maybe it's taking them 10, but they're going to get good at it. And this is part of you going, okay, they got this, they got this. You start to back yourself off and go ahead, you do it. You don't need me. I'll watch you. And they're like, okay. And maybe they have to pull up the document and you watch them follow the document, which is okay. That's why they have it. Like they don't need to pass some memory test and be able to do it without looking at any notes. Like it's okay to look at the notes. It's okay to look at the process as long as they do it right. And then you back off a little bit more to the point where it's like they know clearly what the expectations are. They know when to come to you if something doesn't happen the way that it should. And now you remove yourself a little bit more and you establish, ways to have some checks and balances to make sure that they're doing it without sitting next to them every day. And what happens in this process, their confidence goes up that they could do the job, right? So they start doing it better, right? And your confidence goes up that you could trust them to do the job. So you start releasing a little bit more and a little bit more, because you have to build the trust. People are like, well, how do I trust somebody's going to do it? It takes time, right? It takes time. Like you got to give them, like, here, do this, and I'm going to watch you do this. Okay, here, do this. I'm going to back up a little bit, but I'm still watching you. Here, do this. I'm going to back up to over here, but I'm still watching you, right? And then you get to the point where you're not watching them, but you have ways to go in and just check to make sure that they're getting it done. And the longer they do it, and the more time that big mistakes don't happen that you're not confident that they learned from, because mistakes might happen, but that's okay, right? That will help you to identify where there's room for improvement in the process. But the more time this happens, it'll build your trust in them, and it'll build your trust in yourself to be able to actually delegate, right? And let people do their thing. Because look, we all have a certain comfort level of a point where we hit our comfort level of being able to delegate. Maybe you've got your whole, the core functions of your business delegated, but it's hard for you to delegate the role of like running the whole business, right? We've all got a place where it becomes a little bit more challenging as you grow, but as you do it, you'll gain that competence, you'll gain that confidence, and you'll just get stronger at this. We always need to think through, I want you guys to think about this. Whatever comes up in your mind as why you can't, start to identify that stuff as limiting beliefs. It might be like, I can't spend the time to do this because I know that any minute my kids are going to run through the door. I can't spend the time to do this because I know that I'm going to fall off track and I'm not going to stay consistent with it. Right? If we really start to think about, the reasons we give ourselves, those are all limiting beliefs. I really believe that, I know what's going to happen. I've done this in the past. I've started it and I've stopped it. So why bother again? We've got to break through all of that too. And it's like, once you do, you're like, oh, I get it. Like, this is just going to click. This is just going to click. Like this, if this feels hard right now, it's only because you haven't got to that place where it clicked. The day will come, and many of you, I know it's already clicked, but you're here because you're like, there's that next level. There's that next level. So it's one thing to understand it conceptually. That's the first thing. We need to make sure like you get it. Then it's like, okay, I buy into it. Like, I believe that if I do this, my life and my business will be better. Like, without that, you're not going to do it. Like, if you don't believe what I'm saying, then it's going to be hard. You're not going to go through we got to go through the pain to get to where we want to go. Well, we've got to believe that pain is going to lead us to somewhere good. So that's why I'm spending this extra time hopefully emphasizing that and getting you guys to buy into it. I don't need you to believe me because I want you to believe my concept. I want you to believe it for yourself so that you'll push yourself to do the hard things. So Aaron will say, you know what? All right, I'm getting up at 5, right? And everybody else will say, okay, you know what? I'm closing the door. I'm going to block out the time. You know, this is the stuff that will give you leverage. This is the stuff that if you're telling yourself the story of like, I'm sacrificing right now, because sometimes we have to sacrifice. I know people that I'm like, hey, you know, you really need to get that workout in. You really need to spend some time, you know, getting that meditation in, things like that. And like, I don't have the time. Let me see your calendar. And I'm like, shit, man, you really don't have the time. Okay, well, you know what? This is what we're talking about today. This is what creates the time. This is what creates the freedom. So if you're going to say, I'm willing to sacrifice myself and all the things in my life that I'm putting on hold for my business, then this is the place to start to gain back that time so that you have a business that's set up, or you will, I promise you, still be in the same position as you are next year. You got to break yourself out of the day-to-day. Okay? Once you're out of the day-to-day, what do you do with your time? Right? Because some of you may be there already, or you might be wondering like, well, what do I do? once I'm out of the day-to-day, right? If I spend, and maybe some of you, there's only one position that you still need to remove yourself out of, and you could do that in 90 days, right? You could do that in 90 days. You don't necessarily need the whole year. You know, in the whole year, you're giving yourself 90 days at a clip to break yourself out of, like you're breaking out of prison, one position at a time. All right, so once you get out of the day-to-day, what we need to do now is we just need to create clarity and control systems, right? Because it could feel nerve-wracking to be out of the day-to-day where you feel like, I don't know what's going on. You need your own clarity and control systems. We need clarity on our progress and our plan, right? We need to know that it's working. So we need to know that your vision, your strategy, that it's being executed. Are you making progress on it? Do you have clarity on the plan and how it's being handled? The stuff you've delegated to other people, are you able to see that they're getting it done? Right? And so they're sophisticated ways of doing this by looking in your CRM, by tracking people in your project management tool. But make it as simple as possible and just ask yourself, what do I need to do to make sure they're doing that thing every day, every week? And it could literally be, all right, well, I got to spend 5 minutes and I got to open up the CRM and I got to go check to make sure they're all doing it. Okay. I've got to walk over and ask them to show me this, this, and this. I've got to have them report back to me on what they're doing every day, right? Like along the way, just to get your clarity and control, don't wait till you've got a sophisticated system. Just ask the question of like, what do I need to do to know that this is happening every day? And along the way, once you might even have a sophisticated system of doing it, but then you implement some new process and some new thing, and you're like, you know what, we need to get this thing going right away, but I don't necessarily have the time to create the follow-up system. You could be, hey, I need you guys to send me something, send me a message every day, send me an email every day, send me a text every day, send me a Slack every day, and I need you to tell me this, 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 and this. And if this didn't happen, I need you to tell me why. I need you to send me that every day at the end of the day. And then you can work on something more, less labor intensive, if you will. All right, so you get your clarity. And now you've got control over the people and the process. So you've removed yourself, and let's assume that you don't have somebody to run the entire business. So now the moving pieces of the business, the components of the business, you have people running. But now you need to make sure that your people are doing the right thing. So you need control over your people and your process. Well, if you have clarity on your process, meaning you could pull it up and look at what's documented, because sometimes you will forget things. You will forget how things are done if you haven't already, right? And I remember having times where I forgot how things were done and I wanted to follow up with people that were doing it, but I was afraid to let them know that I didn't know how it got done. And so I wanted to follow up with them. But if you have the process or the video you created 6 months ago or 6 years ago, you could go back and watch that. Oh, okay, that's the current version of how we do that. Let me go make sure they're doing it. And anytime your people are off track, all that means is bring them back to the process. Bring them back to the process. You know, one of the biggest wastes of time for me was rethinking how to do things. Because there's not just one right way of doing things, but sometimes when you're thinking about it, because you kind of, if you think about a lot of the stuff in your business, you kind of made it up on the go, right? Like, how do we do this? You're like, oh, well, this seems like a good way to do it, you know? But if somebody were to ask you again 6 months from now and you forgot your original answer and haven't been doing it yourself consistently to, like, you know, ingrain it in your mind, you might come up with another clever way of doing it. The problem is now you've got 2 different ways of doing it out there, right? Whether it's the same person or 2 different people, and you're wasting time rethinking something that you already thought about once before. You know, that's like, that for me was a huge pain point when I realized that was happening. I'm like, I'm just rethinking the same stuff. I know I know that I came up with a great solution for this, but where is it? I didn't document it. And now I've got nowhere to lead people back to, okay? So you've got to create your clarity and control systems, right? Once you've removed yourself from the day-to-day. Remember, this is a lot, but you're just literally going in and you're going to start with a 1-year objective. Remove myself from the day-to-day. 90 days, remove myself from this one position. Create the role and responsibility for that position. Document those processes. Train and manage that person and start stepping away, okay? Next, your job, once you've removed yourself from the day-to-day, is basically to design and improve processes. You know, look at what's going on, get the feedback through the way of numbers and meetings, and you're like, oh, there's a better way to do this. Let me design a new process. Meaning, let me just think about how I'd like to, you know, don't think it's like so sophisticated. Like the same way when you guys all day, you don't realize all day long you're coming up with processes. You had to build your business. You know, it's just a matter of making them consistent, documenting them, and then being able to just update that. But otherwise, it's just real being clever. Like, okay, here's how we handle it, right? But instead of here's how we handle it, it's like, here's how we handle it for good until we decide to change it, until we design or improve the process, right? So that's what you're doing now. You're looking at the numbers. You're listening to your people. You're talking to them. You're getting the feedback from the business on how the business is doing. And if it's not doing as good as you'd like it to be doing, okay, well, what needs to change? Right? All the change becomes so much easier now, and you could do that collaboratively with your managers and with your team. And then you're also just building and supporting your team. Hiring new people for new roles. You know, key roles or managers, and then supporting them. They're running the day-to-day. You're not running the day-to-day. Right? There comes the time when you get to stop telling everybody what to do. You know, you've trained them and you've managed them and you've moved yourself out of the position, and then you've put somebody else there to manage them based off what you've trained them to do. And now you're like more of a support role. You're more of a coach. You know, tell your managers, like, all right, what's going on? You have the meeting. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. Okay. Well, why don't you put an hour a day on your calendar and block it out to work on hiring sales reps. Every day for an hour, I want you to spend, you know, and you guide them and coach them on how to manage their time, how to manage their people. And you provide that support, but then they go do the work. That's how you create leverage. That's how you multiply yourself. That's how you scale. That's how you get out of the day-to-day and still grow the business. You know? or your blocks of time. Because remember, you're still going to want those blocks of time. You're just going to want, instead of an hour to 2, you're going to be like, you know what, I want 3 to 4 hours a day where I'm just working on objectives, big things. And maybe your objective at that point is like, I'm opening a new city. I'm hiring a COO to run the business, right? I'm putting in a plan to elevate our sales 50% this year, right? And you're architecting how to do it. You're putting together the plan, the strategy based off your vision that you then go to your team and lead them to execute. From there, you realign with your vision. You know, that's the first step is to realign. The first step is to create your vision of what you want in your life, and then create the vision for what you want in your business to be able to help you get what you want in your life. But now you've kind of gone through the steps, right? You've implemented the strategy. You've put the leadership in place. It's being executed. Well, now you come back to the vision from a different place. Like you set the course, and you're like, hey, this is the vision. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to make happen. But guess what? When you make it happen, you're sitting at a different, like you're in a different spot, right? You're really in the driver's seat with complete clarity and control. Take a look at the vision again. Make sure it's still in alignment. Or maybe you want to go higher, right? Or maybe you see things differently along the way, because we can't know everything until we've gone through it. You know, we could set, it's important to set the vision, right? But until you've taken the journey, it's like you don't really know what's going to come up and what, you know, really now that I look at it, I know this is the moneymaker. This thing causes me headaches. This thing is very simple to do. And you realign the vision, and that's it. You go back to work on designing the strategy, designing the systems, building the team to execute that, improving things. And that's it. That's it. So literally all you've got to do today, commit to that 1-year objective of removing yourself from the business. Give yourself the next 90 days and pick one position you're going to remove yourself out of. Go put a 1 to 2 hour time block every day of the week on the calendar to work on your business, or you could write whatever you want to write in there that makes it compelling for you, right? Remove myself from the day-to-day. Then that time block, you create a focus fortress like no other. You think of all possible distractions and anything that could come in, like there's Scud missiles coming at you. And you find a way to defend yourself and create a fortress of focus. The rest of the day, you could be wide open. Like, guys, hit me with all the reaction you got. Hit me with all the fires you got. I'll deal with them. I'll put them out. But that time block is sacred. You've got to honor that time. While you're in that time block, clearly define the role and responsibilities of that first position. Just the first position. Don't go do all of them. Just the first one that you're going to work on for that 90 days. Then, once you've defined the role and responsibilities, then just start documenting the processes in that block, right? Might take you the first week just to document or just to define the role and the responsibilities. You might get it all done in an hour, right? You might be able to get this all done in a week. Like, every one of you operates at a different pace. Some of you will get stuck in kind of a perfectionism place. Like, oh no, I got to make this just right. I got to make this perfect. Look, do you have what you need to be able to clearly communicate to somebody else what's expected of them to do their job, and give them the step-by-step of how to do their job, to where if you weren't around and all you did was say, hey, look at that sheet of paper I gave you, or look at that document I gave you, they'd be able to do it. You do, it would work. It's good enough. Like, don't try to make it perfect. Don't try to make it pretty. You're just getting yourself out of the day-to-day. Then you want to come back around and do a, beautification of your processes. You could do that after, right? And then you train and manage your replacement. That's it. And even if all you're doing is training and managing your replacement in that 1 to 2 hour block, that's okay. right? Because you're maintaining that block, you're protecting that block. And so like you hired this person, they might be there for 8 hours, and maybe you don't have the 8 hours right now to train them, but you've got that 1 hour, you've got those 2 hours. And that's it. I mean, you will be, you know, we're giving you a nice stretch of time to not make it overwhelming, to not make it stressful, to leave room to do it right. And you'll be out of it. I mean, that's how you do it. Don't think you need more money. Don't think you need more time. I can't give you more time. There's no more time. Again, if anybody has a cloning device, let me know. If anyone has a way to get more time, please, I will pay a premium. It's not there. It's not there. It's just protecting the time we've got. So, I mean, I really, truly, by next month, I want to hear like major success stories in this. I was able to remove myself from this. I've got major progress on this. Like, don't be the only one here that doesn't have that kind of progress. Because there's literally no excuse. No excuse. But Louis, the holidays are coming. I don't care. It's an hour a day, Monday through Friday. You can take Christmas off. You can take your holidays off, whatever they might be. All right? You take Thanksgiving Day off. The normal days. But like every other day, it's time to do the work. This is the real work. This is the real work. Remember, time blocks equal progress and freedom. That's it. Not dealing with the reactions and the problems of the day. This right here, time blocks to work on the business, gets you where you want to go. Hey, my friend, before you go, you've got to hurry and watch these next few videos over here. They will absolutely help you take your moving company to the next level. Go watch them now, and I'll see you over there.